This is a U.S. military bioweapons research facility. In an effort to enhance the combat capabilities of the military, they've been secretly working on developing biological weapons. The key to their research is a mysterious gas in a canister. When it's sprayed on a corpse, within a short time, the dead will revive, but as soulless, mindless zombies. Even more terrifying, regular weapons have no effect on these zombies. Only a specially designed tranquilizer can temporarily stop them in their tracks. The experiment has clearly been a success, and John, the lead researcher, is very pleased with his work. However, what he doesn't know is that his son, Kurt, has secretly snuck into the lab and witnessed the entire experiment. Kurt can't believe that his own father is involved in such twisted, inhumane work. Meanwhile, his girlfriend, Julie, is oddly excited about it, so much so that she accidentally makes a noise. The sound is heard by a passing soldier, and fearing they might get caught, Kurt and Julie quickly flee. They use John's access card to escape the base unnoticed. As for John's experiment, the Colonel is absolutely thrilled. He believes that if they can control these monsters and deploy them on future battlefields, they could become an unstoppable killing machine. And the best part? They're easy to manage. After use, they can simply be frozen, packed up, and stored, ready to be used again, like an eternal weapon. However, the more powerful the weapon, the greater the risks. It didn't take long for things to go horribly wrong. While the doctor was examining the zombie's mouth, the zombie, which had just woken up, suddenly bit off his finger. It was clear that the tranquilizer's formula wasn't fully developed, causing the anesthetics effect to wear off too quickly, and the zombie was able to regain mobility. As the zombie attacked the doctor, two researchers tried to use the tranquilizer gun again, but it was too late. By the time the doctor fell, the zombie was finally sedated. To prevent the zombie from waking up again, the researchers had no choice but to bind it tightly. However, they didn't realize that the doctor, who had been bitten, was also starting to mutate. Before they could react, one of them was bitten on the thigh. In an effort to contain the outbreak, the people outside quickly sealed off the lab. Witnessing this horrifying scene, the Colonel, who had just praised John's experiment, immediately changed his demeanor. "Looks like your idea isn't going to work after all," the Colonel said coldly. Not only did he remove John from his position, but he also appointed a female officer to take over the experiment. When John got home, he immediately called Kurt over because he realized his security card was missing after his visit to the base earlier that day. However, Kurt lied and claimed he hadn't seen it. After searching in vain, John also told him about being reassigned and that he would be leaving the city next week. Kurt, who was deeply in love with his girlfriend, Julie, didn't take the news well. He didn't want to leave her behind, but his father was resolute, so Kurt had no choice but to run away with Julie. They hopped on a small motorcycle and began fantasizing about their bright future together. However, their dreams were shattered when a large truck suddenly appeared, and Kurt couldn't avoid it in time. The accident left Kurt with only minor injuries, but Julie, who crashed into a utility pole, lost her life. Seeing Julie lying lifeless on the ground, Kurt was overcome with grief. He couldn't accept this tragic reality. But then, his eyes fell on the security card that had dropped from his pocket. Remembering everything that had happened in the lab, Kurt suddenly had a bold idea. So, he took Julie's body to the base. When the guards saw it was John's son, they didn't stop him. With the security card in hand, Kurt easily snuck into the laboratory. Clearly, Julie's death had driven Kurt to the edge. He put on a protective suit and opened the canister containing the zombies. As the mysterious gas enveloped Julie's body, it didn't take long before she came back to life. Kurt carried her out of the lab, but in his rush, he forgot to seal the canister. As they stepped outside, they suddenly heard a loud crash. Kurt turned around and saw that the canister had tipped over, and whatever was inside was now gone. A sense of dread washed over him. Just as he was about to close the door, a zombie suddenly appeared in front of him. Fortunately, Kurt managed to shut the door in time. But Julie was feeling strange. Her body was acting abnormally. Reluctantly, Kurt had to tell her the truth, that she had been brought back to life. Julie immediately broke down in tears. Suddenly, a zombie crashed through the door, grabbing Julie. In a panic, Kurt shoved the zombie away and pulled Julie, rushing to escape. But as they swiped their security card to leave, soldiers who had heard the commotion came rushing over. Seeing their weapons, Kurt and Julie froze, not daring to make a move. But in the next instant, the soldiers were attacked and taken down by the pursuing zombies. Julie, horrified by the scene, couldn't help but fear that she might end up like one of them, a zombie. But with the situation growing more dire by the second, the only option they had was to get out of there, fast. At this point, Kurt had no idea that everything he had done was about to unleash a massive disaster. Through the security cameras, John learned of the entire sequence of events. While the zombies at the base had been contained, Julie was carrying the virus inside her. To prevent things from spiraling out of control, they needed to capture her and Kurt as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Kurt had taken Julie to the streets. As her body began to mutate, Julie became ravenously hungry. They stumbled into a store, where Julie immediately grabbed a huge handful of snacks and started devouring them as though she hadn't eaten in years. This bizarre behavior caught the attention of a few local thugs, and they started mocking her. The tension quickly escalated, and just as things seemed about to turn violent, the store owner intervened to stop the confrontation. But to his surprise, the thugs took advantage of the situation and began looting the store. The owner, trying to intimidate them with a gun, was overpowered by their numbers. In the chaos, the owner was shot in the abdomen. Seeing him fall, they quickly fled, but the young thug trailing behind was bitten by Julie. In pain, the young thug slapped her, and before leaving, he even sabotaged their motorcycle. With no other choice, Kurt and Julie decided to drive away in the store owner's truck, taking him to the hospital along the way. But just as they were about to leave, a police car arrived on the scene. Fearing that Julie would be caught, Kurt slammed on the gas and sped off. However, the police weren't about to let them escape that easily, and they immediately reported the situation to John at the base. As soon as John learned their location, he quickly mobilized a team to track them down. Meanwhile, the police car continued to chase them relentlessly. The store owner, knowing that his time was running out, realized Kurt wasn't planning to stop. Desperate, he turned to the police officers in the back of the car for help. But the officers, thinking the store owner had been infected, immediately opened fire. The poor guy had really run out of luck. Even after he became a cold corpse, Julie showed no mercy. In her eyes, he was just another meal. Finally, after shaking off the police, Kurt turned around to find Julie feasting on the store owner's brain. Shocked, he immediately rushed over to stop her. Julie froze, confused and horrified. She had no idea why she was doing it. Soon after, the police found the scene, but not only did they fail to locate Kurt and Julie, they were instead attacked by the mutated store owner in the back of the truck. One of the officers fired his weapon, but it had no effect whatsoever. Luckily, at that critical moment, John and his soldiers arrived, administering a tranquilizer to save the officer. It was clear that the situation was becoming increasingly dire. Anyone bitten by Julie would undergo a mutation. At the same time, a few mentally unstable men who had passed by earlier saw what was happening and mistakenly thought the military was after them. The young man who had been bitten also began feeling unwell, realizing the bite had triggered something much worse than they expected. To avenge their friend, the leader of the group, Santos, decided to go after Julie and Kurt. Knowing the city's layout well, they quickly figured out that the only way to escape from the area was through the sewer system. With that in mind, they revved their engines and sped off toward the sewer exit. The military, after conducting some investigations, managed to find a few clues confirming that Kurt and Julie had escaped through the sewer system, and they began preparing to head towards the sewer exit. Meanwhile, Julie, determined not to drag Kurt into her mess, stood on a bridge, ready to jump. Just as Kurt approached, she made the decisive leap. A homeless man below witnessed the scene. As Kurt searched for Julie, the man suddenly appeared behind him and told him that such a fall was unlikely to leave anyone alive. However, when they found Julie, she was as lively and full of energy as ever. Due to the unique nature of zombies, it seemed that such a height was no obstacle. The homeless man was left speechless, unable to believe his eyes. As Kurt and Julie were about to move on together, they saw Santos and his group arriving. Sensing danger, the homeless man quickly led them to his luxuried underground hideout, claiming it was the safest place to rest. He not only gave up his own bed for them, but also handed Kurt a lucky coin. At this point, Santos and his men had already entered the sewers, and John had tracked them down to the same location. The homeless man, who had been sleeping near the door, was caught off guard by Santos and his crew. Still half asleep, the homeless man was forcibly woken up by Santos, and the noise startled Kurt, who had been peacefully sleeping inside. Just as one of Santos's lackeys was about to knock on the door, Kurt jumped out and knocked him out with a powerful swing. Santos, ready to draw his gun, was also knocked back by Kurt, but outnumbered, Kurt was quickly subdued. As Santos was about to demand answers about Julie's whereabouts, a strange figure suddenly pushed the door open. It was Julie, transformed into a thorn-covered queen, her body adorned with nails and glass. Her terrifying appearance would normally make anyone run for their life, but Santos was no ordinary man. He was fascinated by this unique cosplay and actually brought her into the room. However, it wasn't long before agonizing screams echoed from within. When the door finally opened again, Santos was gone, his fate sealed. One of his lackeys, seeing this, immediately drew his gun and fired, but it was no use. Julie kept advancing, and he was swiftly taken down. The woman watching in horror tried to flee, but she was grabbed by the leg before she could escape. Although Kurt tried to stop her in time, the woman was bitten by one of her mutated companions. With more and more people mutating into zombies, the three of them were forced to retreat back into the room and barricade the door with wooden planks. But these zombies were relentless, and the metal door outside was soon breached. It was only a matter of time before they would break through. Kurt told the homeless man to take Julie and leave, while he stayed behind to hold off the zombies. In the face of danger, the homeless man didn't hesitate and quickly grabbed Julie, rushing out of the room. But they hadn't gotten far before the horde broke in. Fortunately, Kurt managed to slip into a small gap in the wall and sneaked out through the other side. However, when he caught up with the homeless man and Julie, he discovered that the homeless man had already been taken down by the now mindless Julie. Seeing Julie about to pounce on him, Kurt had no choice but to strike her hard with a stick, snapping her out of her frenzy for a moment. At that moment, Kurt was overwhelmed with guilt, regretting ever bringing Julie back to life. He dropped the stick and prepared to let himself mutate alongside her. But before he could act, the zombies broke through the door. Just as all seemed lost, John and his men arrived in time, firing a dart of tranquilizer that knocked the zombies out. One by one, the zombies were subdued, and Julie, too, fell under the effects of the tranquilizer. Afterward, they were all taken back to the base, where the research on biological weapons continued. Julie's behavior proved that zombies still retained some semblance of humanity, which was a crucial discovery for future studies. Ultimately, the goal was to turn all zombies into biomechanical soldiers, equipped with exoskeletons. Kurt, unable to accept what was happening to Julie, returned to the lab to find her. He learned that she, too, would be transformed, turned into something resembling the homeless man. Once again, Kurt chose to take a risk. He broke into Julie's cage, knocked out a researcher with a punch, and the commotion alerted others in the lab. The not-yet-modified homeless man, sensing an opportunity, rebelled and, now equipped with a mechanical exoskeleton, quickly eliminated a few of the researchers. Seeing the chaos unfold, Kurt hurried to unlock Julie's chains. His impulsive decision to save her once more threw the entire base into crisis. The only exit was automatically sealed, and during a scuffle with the homeless man, one of the researchers accidentally shot an electrical panel, plunging the lab into darkness. As the emergency power kicked in, the homeless man grabbed a researcher, and in the chaos, he accidentally opened a containment room full of zombies. The jars were knocked over, and zombies poured out into the lab. The researcher was thrown out of the room, and the female officer immediately opened fire, but the homeless man, now wearing the exoskeleton, was impervious to the bullets. With one powerful slap, she was knocked unconscious, and the researcher who had fallen was dragged back into one of the jars. Kurt wanted to escape with Julie, but no matter how loudly they called out, no one responded. Suddenly, he remembered the lucky coin the homeless man had given him. Holding the coin, the homeless man seemed to regain some lost memories and, with great effort, managed to pry open the iron door. Kurt and Julie quickly made their way out, but in the process, the zombies were also released. As they narrowly avoided one zombie, another suddenly lunged at Kurt, biting into his arm. He managed to push the zombie off and kept running. They reached an intersection and were confronted by John, who was holding the iron door, urging his son to leave. But Kurt refused, telling his father that he had been bitten. After speaking, Kurt turned and walked away, leaving his father in despair. The two of them made their way to the incinerator, turning the temperature to its highest setting. Hand in hand, they walked into the flames together,